What is it you are looking for? Oh, it will bow and whittle you down to your core. If you don't ask for help, if you don't help yourself.
Something that I found in my journey as a person on the earth is how hard it is to maintain an openness to things changing. Sometimes I find myself stuck in the unfairness of a situation or just how hard things are. And I don't want to leave it. I think, like human nature, we get stuck really easily, and things that are beautiful versus things that are painful, it doesn't matter. We want to like cling to them. We don't want to let go of feelings. And one of the best things that you can do for yourself, I think, that I've found is being able to find a way to check in and let go. Just recognize the attachment to the situation and just figure out some way to let in the possibility for change. So like, I could be really mad at somebody and not understand, and not understand their behavior or not understand a situation in life. And at a certain point, I'm either going to have to notice that I'm mad and I'm like, I want to stay mad, and but it's really only just making me miserable. It's imprisoning me. So in short, just finding ways to free yourself from the obligation of to stick to your emotions or stick in them. You have total freedom of emotional states. You're a feeling being. Pain is not optional. We all have it. We all feel it. We all have to go through it. And so even when you're feeling devastated or heartbroken or hopeless or worthless, those feelings are so real in the moment. And sometimes it doesn't matter to think that it's going to go away, because you really can't imagine it being any different. And so I think there's something to be said for the acknowledgement that at some point you're going to have the choice to let it go, that it's in your control, that the suffering, like no matter how much pain you can go through in your life, how much you suffer can ultimately actually be somewhat controlled by you. A willingness to let things move and change, and let yourself hurt, and then when it's time to stop hurting, let yourself move into another phase, whatever your body and your soul needs to feel.
I take the blame for your wreckage. We are not a pretty package. I know that you know what I mean, and I know it's me who took you out of the little cocoon you built yourself.
Throughout the different periods of my life and like different emotions, I've kind of built up this armory of different coping skills for different experiences. So if I'm feeling really, really anxious and overwhelmed, I like to doodle, but like obsessively, like very, very small, kind of humorous drawings, so things that make me feel happy to look at and to draw, and also practicing guitar and singing and piano. Composing is a huge coping mechanism for me, especially classical and instrumental pieces for emotions, poetry, all that stuff. For heavy, intense emotion, I like to create. I need to create in order to purge it, sort of. And then for just like daily life, I love yoga, and I love meditation, and trying to make myself go outside at least once every day. even coping with happiness and like coping with good stuff is I have to like kind of use skills for that too, because it's important to pay attention just as much to the good stuff, and sometimes that's hard. I think one of the earliest feelings of heartbreak, I guess, when I knew what heartbreak was, sort of in touch with my own emotions as opposed to just like coping with the chaos around me. When I was around 14, I had a lot of stuff going on in my life that was out of my control. I also had just like, I'd had a eating disorder for 4 years, and that had just continued to get worse. It followed me until I was 21. But I was a freshman in high school, and all of my friends sort of disappeared. And like all of my connections just sort of left. And I had lost, one friend the year before to suicide, and I didn't really have much mental space or desire for, I guess, young love or romance, but the heartbreak of losing friends, it's followed me my entire life. But for some reason, that's like what I'm thinking about right now, is heartbreak and adolescence. And I moved to 4 different high schools, and I was bullied, and I was, I fit in sometimes, but it was always with this, I don't know. I just remember the beginning of my freshman year, the first day, just like walking into school and feeling like things were never going to be the same. And I was right, but I just didn't have anyone, that I didn't feel like I had anyone, and that feeling caused me to further alienate myself for years, spiraling in this tornado of isolation and chaos. I don't know if that's specific enough, but it's just this very strong memory of having nobody, literally. I think when a person feels like they have like nothing to lose, I guess, and every moment is like about the next moment. So every moment that I experienced when I was really, really dealing with like PTSD and my grief and bullying and all the things that kind of followed me in that time of my life, the only thing that I was interested in was getting out of what I was feeling in that moment. So whatever that would take, whether it was self-harm, whether it was an eating disorder, whether it was all these other things, it seemed totally necessary in the moment, and it seemed like the only choice I had. Now, I mean, it's been a long journey. My life is pretty freaking awesome. Not perfect, but I'm not as, my life isn't as moment to moment. I have a bigger kind of scope and of things that I think about, and my ability to handle and hold and have compassion for just my own experiences and my own emotions and the emotions and experiences of others has really grown. And so I can hold those really unpleasant and terrifying feelings that we all feel at certain points in our life. But yeah, I mean, I think anything that's self-destructive or that keeps us from our relationship with ourselves, having a really solid working relationship with ourselves, can definitely be deemed unhelpful / bad. I mean, it's just not something. It fractures the relationship with yourself to be self-destructive. So.
In my red railroad line, time flies. Oh, a little slow and brittle. What is it you are looking for? Oh, it will.
I don't know. It's weird. It's makes me weirdly emotional. Because I guess I would just say I love you. And also just to hold on. Experiencing difficulty, especially intense emotion and things that are just sometimes more than we're ready for, often more than we're ready for. It is really hard, and I've spent so much of my life joking and just kind of making light of the things that happened to me and the struggles that I had and that I have. And I needed to do it to get through it, but it is not easy. It is so hard. It is so hard to be young and hurting, and it is so hard to be old and hurting. It's so hard to hurt. And to know, I don't know, I think that it would have been cool if I could have had myself, I guess, now when I was 14, because 14, 15, 16, 17, I don't know. It's there's so much opportunity for you to be your own hero. And there's just we can't know what's going to happen in our lives. I could have never predicted that I wouldn't feel that way anymore, but I don't. And I could have never predicted that I would, sit in front of a camera and be I love myself, and I wish I could hug my 14-year-old self. I would have never thought I would say that, so, yeah. Of all the most important things that I needed to hear, and that somehow I told myself, hold on, just, don't give up. Don't give up is seems so cliche, but if that's all you can do, if all you can do is just stay alive through it, if you need to get help, if you need to, whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact that you're still alive and you're staying alive, that is the most important thing. That you will be alive for that inevitable process of change. And my health is just so hard. I have been struggling with medical illness since I was around 20. I'm 24 now. I have a chronic illness called mast cell activation syndrome and a bunch of other lists, and it makes just daily life really hard. I didn't get the opportunity to love life a lot until recently, and that has been hard to do in a sick body, and it's been hard to swallow sort of the realities that come with being physically limited. I do a lot of things to cope with it. I'm not. I don't think I'm not. I'm not an expert yet. I see a therapist, and we do really cool work with like building a relationship with your body, my body. I do a lot of breathing, and I try. I don't know. I guess I handle, I don't know, the things that I'm going through right now in the same way I handle the things that I went through. Most of the emotional, just like roadblocks and barriers and difficulties I've experienced in my life have been sort of after the fact, sort of dealing with what was. And right now I'm dealing with what is, and it is hard, and it's uncomfortable, and it's scary, and there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of tests, and there's a lot of ways that I'm feeling that I can't explain and that no one seems to be able to explain. And an ability to do things that I want to do quite often. But I think I deal with them the same. Therapy is like a cup of coffee or some kind of whatever self-care rituals that we have. And it's like a very vulnerable position to be in. I think our society and like the world has a really big problem with admitting that we're human. Like everybody's trying to prove that they're somehow not human, even though we're literally all on the same playing field. And so anything that makes people feel like, that kind of brings them down, might make people feel smaller, more equal, more vulnerable, I think is inherently open to more stigma. Therapy, I believe that like if everybody went to therapy, I think a lot less people would need to go to therapy like later. As they say, hurt people who are out of touch with their own emotions and their own traumas end up being very careless with others and careless with themselves. And I think maybe that's therapy in a nutshell, is just teaching you how to care, how to really care about yourself, and inherently, enact that care out onto others. So.
Tell them where we've been, no hush, I suppose.